Hey, everybody, and welcome to the 9 to Side podcast, where we chat with super amazing and inspirational people who pounded the pavement before and after their 9 to 5s to get their side hustles off the ground. After listening to the interviews with these amazing guests, you'll walk away with a refreshed pep in your step and a newfound motivation to make your side hustle a reality. Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of season 2 of the 9 to Side podcast. My next guest is in the field of communication, which I love. As I'm speaking into this microphone and doing this podcast, I realize how hard communicating your message can be oftentimes. Even for somebody who I feel like I've always been like, oh, communication, I'm good at communicating with people. No, I think there's so much to learn. I think some people have a natural knack for general communication, but the art of being able to communicate your message clearly and concisely or sell it to a larger group, especially in the corporate business world, is such a learned skill set. And even people who have a natural knack for it, there's definitely room to kind of hone that skill set. And there are people who teach that who are really good at it, like my next guest, Brenden Kumarasamy. He's the founder of MasterTalk, such a nice guy, super young, a ton of experience, and he has a 2-part business. Part of it, one part is his coaching business. So he's a communication coach for entrepreneurs and top execs. And then the other part is his YouTube channel where he teaches communication skills through that. And I learned so much from him just in terms of a new kind of thing that I hadn't heard of called case competitions. So he did competitive presentation teams where they're basically, instead of like a debate team or something, you're competing in your presentation skills. And that's sort of where he groomed his skills and started kind of getting that groundwork to training people and coaching people. And it went from there. And he'll talk about that story. But I thought that was so cool. I had never heard of case competitions before. Maybe I live under a rock. I don't know. But anyway, I hope you enjoy my interview with Brenden. Welcome. You're the founder of MasterTalk. So I'm really excited to talk to you because I want to hear about your business and how it all got started. Before we do that, let's just really quickly, before we get into your background, give me the elevator pitch, just in the spirit of side hustles, the elevator pitch of what your business is and whether it is truly a side hustle right now or whether it's your full-time career.
Absolutely. So I side hustled MasterTalk for 2 years and a half. And for the last year, it's been full-time now. But yes, it did start as a side hustle for almost 3 years. So the elevator pitch is, my name is Brenden Kumarasamy. I'm the founder of MasterTalk. MasterTalk is a YouTube channel that I started to help the world master the art of communication and public speaking. And I also have a coaching practice where I train ambitious executives and entrepreneurs to become top 1% communicators in their industries.
Let's talk about like a little bit of background about who you are, where you got started. Tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into where you are.
So the story for me started in university/college. So I went to business school. And the goal was never to become an entrepreneur. Like that was the least thing. You would ask me what was I going to do when I was growing up, and I would have told you become a big time executive at an accounting firm or like an IBM or something. And that's what I did in some way, shape, or form. I did these things called case competitions. Think of it like professional sports, but for nerds. So yeah, I mean, like, all the guys my age are playing football or basketball or something. For me, it was presentations. That's what I did competitively. So basically what I did, Lexi, was I got really good at these case competitions at a young age, like 19 or something. And then as I got older, I just started coaching people who were younger than me, mostly for free back then.
Wait, because we didn't really stop you. For those who don't know, also for the audience who doesn't know me as Lexi, you branded me Lexi, which is cool. Some people call me Lexi, so I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm Lexi for this interview. What is a case competition? Give me a little background on that.
So yeah, Lexi, for a case competition is, think of it like this. So you have 3 hours. A company, let's say Nike as an example, right? Let's say they come up to us and they say, Brenden, Lexi, I have the shoe that I created and I don't know which country to sell it to first. Which one should I pick and why? So basically what happens is a group of students have 3 hours to figure out a solution to this case, read a 20-page document, make slides, make financial statements like numbers and all this stuff, create a strong analysis, figure out a solution to pitch back to the judges. And at the end of the 3 hour period, you present immediately to a panel. And the panel of judges are generally senior executives of that company. This is only open to business schools.
Got it.
So you have to be like studying in business in university. That's one piece. The second piece is, what's the benefit? Like, why do these things exist? So the executives actually spend like say Nike would spend like 40, 50 grand on a competition to sponsor one of these things. And the reason is to hire talent. So they come here because, remember, to your point, you actually hit it on the nail, Lexi, when you said, oh my God, this is like super anxiety inducing. Exactly. So because of that, the people who put themselves through this experience are the best students in every university. Right? If you opt in for it, it means you're the amazing person. You're the all-star.
Right.
So in the same way that like Harvard is like a feeder school for all of the best job opportunities, let's say on Wall Street or something, that's kind of common lingo people would get. Case competitions is the feeder school to every great job opportunity in business. The reason how I got into this was when I got into business school, Lexi, I thought grades were everything. You know, I grew up with not a lot of money. My parents were factory workers. I didn't have a network to like really wealthy individuals. But when I started talking to people who were like 2 years older than me, let's say I was like first year fresh in university, and they were like third, fourth year, I asked them, how did you get your internship? Almost all of them said case competition. I was like, what the heck is that? And that's why I started doing these things to get a job. That's why it started. And then it turned into an obsession that we could talk about a little bit later if you want.
So cool. So I totally agree. That was super helpful. I think insightful, because I don't think, I'm assuming a lot of people know about that. Does it still exist? There's still a big thing, or has that changed?
So I'm not sure if it's a big thing, but definitely still a thing. It's just what happens, Lexi, and why these environments. So how in the world did I get all of this experience? Because I coach a lot of CEOs now, but I'm only 26. So how did that happen in such a short period of time? And the reason is because I did Olympics level presentations in university. And what happens is the people who end up graduating, let's say in like the year 2000, right? The graduating class of 2000, 2010 or something, they become vice presidents in their companies like super fast, like by the time they're like 30. And then they give back to the program. So then they become the coaches for the next generation of students. So when I entered the program, my coaches were like senior vice presidents of companies. They were C-levels. C-level just means CEO. They owned a bunch of businesses, and they did not mess around. Like, this was not like a fun environment. This was like, I had a ton of ego too when I started, because it's really hard to get into the program. It's kind of like a professional sports team. So when I got in, I was super cocky, and boy, did they kill that ego really fast.
I completely derailed you from your history and where you were going with that. So, okay, let's keep going on the case study. From there, you got into that. And then after that, what happened with that? You thought you were going to get a traditional job. You wanted to work at whatever, a corporate company and be like a C-level executive. And then what happened?
So essentially, to get really specific, I competed the first year when I was like 20 or something. But kind of like in a sports team where as you get older, you start coaching the younger generation. I was in the program the entire university. But as I got older, I started coaching new students who were entering that program from college or from high school. But here's the thing. I was the only person who was, I guess, eligible to like coach them on communication, because A, we didn't have the budget for one, and B, I kind of knew how to speak, and C, I kind of knew how to coach. But I didn't really know what a communication coach was. I didn't know you could make money from it. I didn't know you could build a business around it. It was mostly around my drive to win. So as I got older, I started coaching these people on communication, and I made a ton of mistakes. But basically from the ages of 19 to 22, I was the unofficial communication coach for the program, and I coached like 70 people on how to speak really well at international competitions by the time I graduated from college.
What starts with making someone a good communicator to like the group, for someone to identify and say, you're a great communicator? What are the skills that you possess?
So how the program is structured, Lexi, is it's a student-run program. So even if there's faculty professors who are coaches and who kind of help you manage the school relationships, like the president of the university, to like keep funding us and stuff, it's primarily ran by alumni of the program or people who have been through it. So I'll give an example. Let's say year one university student does the program. Some of them will apply to join the executive team and run the ship for the next generation and compete themselves. So what happened with me is case competitions went from something that I just felt I wanted to get a job. It wasn't like anything more, to an insane obsession. Think of me like the Michael Jordan that nobody gives a shit about. And what I mean by that, right, is like MJ was known, right, very well in like his documentary The Last Dance and his basketball career as someone very vicious to his teammates, right? But I was the same way in case competitions, just nobody cares about presentations, right? So as I grew up, I developed this just insane obsession about winning. It wasn't about getting a job anymore because I'd secured a great job. I started my career at PricewaterhouseCoopers, one of the big four accounting firms, massive company, right? Yeah. And I got an internship there when I was like 19 and a half, right? So I was set. Like at that point, I was set. So basically for me, it was mostly around winning these bloody things. So I joined the executive team myself so I could be the dictator of that program and lead the team to victory. I just self-anointed because I was the best speaker in the program. And nobody was good at it at the level I was. But the other piece was nobody wanted to coach it because they were busy doing their own competitions.
Which is so interesting to me. So, because I guess I assume that at this level, everybody has to have the highest level of presentation skills. I mean, isn't that part of it? So like would you get to this level and not be a phenomenal presenter? Or are you like a basketball team where you've got like defense, somebody who plays this, and then you bring somebody up from the bench to do this, and one person is like giving the opening and the closing? Because like, is that how it works with the case study too? Like you're structuring your team where you're the opener and the closer because you just like own the show, or you're the headliner, and that's why you became the de facto communicator?
You're asking the right question because it helps me clarify as well. Because I usually don't go into this level of detail just because you're asking me, which is awesome. Yeah. So actually how the program works, Lexi, is there's 79 people in the program. So this is the world's largest program that I just so happen to go to. And there's 400 applicants every, like 300 to 400.
And what's the name of it again? I missed the name of it.
It's called the John Molson Competition Committee. So I went to a university called Concordia that not a lot of people know in Montreal. It's next to McGill. That's a more recognizable name. So basically, there's 79 people in the group and it's teams of 3. So you're right, to your point. I could do that for my own team. But for all the other teams, they all need great presenters too.
Oh, gotcha.
And your follow-up question, which was a very good one, is, well, Brenden, if we're picking 79 people out of 400, wouldn't all of them be exceptional communicators out of the bat? Why would they need coaching? But the truth is, Lexi, is most of them weren't. And the reason was because communication is only one of the factors that we look at when putting someone into a team. There's other skills that are equally important, like analytical ability, work ethic. The people in this group work like dogs. Like you're not allowed to just to give you an idea of how nuts this program was, like you weren't allowed to have holidays with your family during Christmas. Like that was just a no-go. And the reason it was a no-go is because the competition is the first week of January. Like New Year's Eve for 3 years in that program. And I loved it, by the way. I was like at school. Like I wasn't with family. That doesn't make any sense. So a lot of the students in the program, Lexi, they were really smart individuals. Like these people work at like amazing companies, right? Goldman Sachs, like all these stuff. But some of them, like finance teams as examples, they're just shitty communicators. Like, but you don't want to not take these people because they're the most analytical mind. Because even if you have a great communicator, if they crap up the case, like they'll still lose. Whereas communication is really easy to teach someone if they're already smart people. So that's why we make those selections. And I just made myself the communication coach.
I got it. Okay. So this makes a lot of sense. I'm curious now, in the interest of what this podcast is and all about kind of putting the pieces together. So I understand how you became kind of the master communicator instructor, but like, when did it kind of click to you to be like, look, I can come up with, or when did you come up with like a method for teaching? What did that look like? Talk me through some of those steps of when you like formalized it into kind of your own thing that is your coaching technique.
So essentially what happened, it's fun that you got to see the string of events. So it was 2019. I was 3 years into the competition. I landed my dream job at IBM and I had made it, right? 6-figure package right off the top. I had 2-3 job offers. Life was set. Like I got what I wanted from case competitions. But I realized that my game was coming to an end because I was retiring. It's kind of like a professional athlete when they retire. Right. Trust me, it took me a long time to refine this because when I was on my first couple of shows, it doesn't make sense to people, right? Rightfully so. Because they're like,
It seems odd to retire from case studies before a professional basketball player would retire. I mean, if Tom Brady is still playing football, it seems like you could have still been doing case studies.
And the honest answer is, unfortunately, you can't. So like sports, you can still like coach, but you can't be on the field anymore because it's only open to university students. So it's early retirement. Okay. But most people don't care about retiring from case competitions because they got what they wanted, which was the job. So the problem with getting a corporate job was I was losing that fire because when I started working at IBM, I mean, Like I had zero competition. The reason was because I was such a cold-blooded with all my spreadsheets and everything. I was just 10 times more efficient than the average employee. So I wasn't like fun. Like I was already in line to be an executive before the age of 30. So how does this all lead to MasterTalk, man? The last semester, 4 months before I started working at IBM and I graduated university, one of the 70 students or 50 students, I don't remember how many, that I'd coached over the years asked me this question that I felt was super interesting. And the question was, how did you learn how to speak? And I didn't have a good answer to it. I said, what do you mean? He's like, well, did you hire a coach? Did you do Toastmasters? Did you watch YouTube videos? I was like, why would anyone watch YouTube videos about communication and public speaking? And he said, well, how did you accumulate all of that knowledge on your own? Which I did, by the way. I was 100% self-taught. But he planted this interesting seed. And I just said, well, I got 4 months to kill. Might as well, before working, might as well watch what's out there. And I was horrified by what I saw. I saw a bunch of videos by other communication coaches, and everything in my brain just wasn't available online for free, especially for younger people. And that's what led to the launch of the YouTube channel. But at this point, the business still hadn't started yet.
Got it. Okay. And do you feel like when you said to the question, which I should have asked you about, like in terms of how you learn to communicate, but some people I feel like just born communicators, right? Like you need to refine the skill. It's like being naturally musical or something. You may need to refine it or hone it, but you're born with that talent. Like, do you feel like you were a born communicator and you just kind of figured out how to like rein that in and really just like fine tune it so it worked well for you? Or do you feel like you had to work on it like harder than you normally would because you weren't a natural communicator?
Pretty sure I have some born talent, some, right? But definitely I was sloppy in university. I was not as clean as I am today as a communicator. So it definitely took a lot of reps. I mean, I presented like 400 times in 3 years to get to the level that I am today. And I've probably presented a lot more since. But yes, I do think most of it, a lot of it was born for sure.
And when you say communicator in your side hustle specifically, you're speaking about the talent of being able to use that in a corporate executive setting, right? You're not talking about somebody who wants to be better at like a party or dating per se, or being able to talk about their life. Like that's not your talking specifically about communication in a corporate setting and being able to like present ideas and that sort of thing, correct?
Absolutely. And in the context of your podcast, right, the evolution of a side hustle, it definitely didn't start that way. So let me walk you through that super quickly. So I started the YouTube channel. I wasn't looking to coach executives. I was just making videos for free because I was making 6 figures at IBM. Like I was set. Like I didn't really care about making this side hustle. So I started in January 2019. And I was making videos in my mother's basement every week, like right over there on that couch. And then what happened, it was 9 months later, in September of 2019, I went to Columbus, Ohio to meet a guy named Lewis Howes. He's a podcaster. And I went to his conference, the Summit of Greatness, because I had always wanted to meet him. So I went to the event and I met my business partner there. And my business partner, who is currently my business partner and coach, he's the one who nudged me to turn into a hot side hustle. He said, hey, man, you do realize you can coach executives and make a ton of money doing this and impact a lot more lives. What are you still doing at IBM? And I laughed at him. I was like, you kidding me? Like, why would I leave my job at IBM? So how does this then lead to your question around executives? So I didn't start with executives. One of the advice I have when starting a side hustle is you should focus on something that you would have done for free anyways, and that ideally other people are charging for. So coaching was something I did for free since I was 19. 7 years I've been coaching now, but I never thought I could charge money for it until Vamsi brought it up. Vamsi's my business partner. And then the other piece, which is to your point, I tried a bunch of customer segments. I tried coaching students for money. They loved the coaching, couldn't afford it. I tried CEOs of technology companies, absolutely amazing clients, couldn't afford it because they hadn't raised their first round of funding yet. And I just kept trying a bunch of segments, and I was telling Vamsi, this is not going to work. And then Vamsi was like, oh, you could do technology executives. And I said, why? They said, well, they already got money. They're super technical and they can't get promoted without communication. And then I said, no way. And he said, yes, when he wrote me a $5,000 check and he said, coach my clients because they're all technology executives. That's when I found product market fit.
Okay. Because there's a big step then between going from free YouTube videos to going in and pitching. I understand you obviously had an in with IBM, you worked there, but taking a talent, and this is where I'm trying to kind of connect the dots for people that are listening, like somebody that has, because I think coaching is something that's like, in my opinion, when I hear this is like hard for me, like in terms of tangible, it's like, what have you created that is like unique or like package that and then saleable And then how do you go and you're pitching this offering to somebody? Like, how do they not know that? How does IBM not have a company that comes in that trains them? Like, how do you overcome that? So when did you brand it MasterTalk, and when did you kind of like package what your offering is? Because I'm assuming you have a program that you go through with them, correct?
So a couple of things that I would say kind of as a principle here. So the first thing that I would say, Lexi, is when it comes to side hustles, the biggest mistake that people make is they try and be 100% different instead of a 20% better. So what does that mean? That means a lot of people try to be really, really different. Oh, let me create the next Facebook. Let me create the next MySpace. Let me create something new, instead of going, no, that's actually a terrible way of approaching side hustles. Most of the time, what you should do is you should make a list of every profitable side hustle in the world. Just make a list of all of them and then look at all of them and see if there's some that you're really, really passionate about. And coaching for me just happened to be that one thing. That's one part to your question. But I'd say the other piece, it goes back to what you said around, okay, how did I sell IBM? Didn't IBM? Okay, so a couple of things there. I had a lot of trouble selling B2B because I'm young, right? So it's really hard for me to get those relationships. And once again, you got to be tenacious. You got to try a bunch of different things. If you try like 10 things and you give up, you haven't tried hard enough. Like I tried hundreds of different things until something worked. But for me, what ended up working really well, Lexi, was you're right. A lot of large cap companies do hire speech coaches, but luckily for me, they suck. They're not getting the results, right? So what happened was I would go to executives and I would say, look, I'm X number of dollars, but I guarantee the result. If you don't get results working with me, because I already got the results for free a long time ago, then I'll just give you your money back. And most people said no. But here's the thing. I only need one person to say yes. And that person was Vamsi. So what happened, and I got a bunch of no's before that. I mean, Vamsi offered me, he bet on me. But, back then I was broke. Like I had $0 in my business account. And then when he bet on me, that's all I needed. Because after somebody wrote me a check, all I needed now to do is deliver the service, which is easy because I had done it for so many years, right? And after that, I mean, the word of mouth just exploded my business after that. Because if you're good in coaching and you know what you're talking about, like people are just going to refer you business. That's the second piece. The third piece that I recommend is always start by doing your side hustle for free if you can. So if you want to like sell a cupcake, okay, like you can give a free sample to see if you're actually good at cupcakes, right? I think the key is, what is a small sample service that you can give for free to get people excited about who you are, to buy into you, and then you could figure out what to charge for later. And then let me start giving a free session. And then the second session is like $20 just to see if I make money. My first client was, paid me like $100 an hour. And that $100 was like $100 million. I was like, oh my God, like I could charge money for it. And that's when I was sailing.
I'm curious to know how or why you decided to leave your job at IBM. If you could, I mean, maybe this became too much, but could you not have done this and continued? Like, how long were you doing this as a side hustle and your job at IBM before it took off?
I never wanted to leave my job, to be honest. Quitting my job was the hardest decision I ever made in my life. Like for me, my whole identity was wrapped around getting a corporate job. It was never to be an entrepreneur, right? So quitting my job wasn't about the money, because I could always go back to IBM. It's more about I had to give up the identity of who I used to be. That was the challenge. Essentially happened was, you're right, I side hustled it for as long as I could. I had a lot of anxiety around leaving my job. So what happened? What happened was I started just getting one client after the next and after the next. And my job just started getting really hard. And I had replaced 50% of my income at this point, because coaching packages are they're not cheap, Lexi. Like they're thousands of dollars, right?
What's your typical, like when somebody does, like you're working with executives and they sign on, what's the typical time frame commitment and then like financial commitment from them? Is it one person you're working with, or they commit to the whole company?
So how the program is structured is it's 12 weeks and the program's $3,000 US.
Okay.
Right. So it's not like a $30 program. It's like we sell to 100 really, really high end people and we give them really high end service.
That's pretty amazing. And in terms of like when people think about side hustles and starting something like coaching business, like for you, what was the startup cost investment? Because did you have to invest a lot? I mean, in terms of your website or anything like that, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of upfront costs that you had to invest.
No, every business has pros and cons, right? I would say the biggest pro to a coaching business is there's very low overhead. Like our margins are 95% because you're trading your time for money, right? But the biggest con to coaching, because it's important to understand the cons, is it's a high energy intensive business. There's a couple of principles I want to point out because I like principles. So the first thing that I'd recommend for anyone looking to start a side hustle is get a job first, like make money. Because statistically, most business owners, they just lose. That's just how the numbers work, yeah?
Right.
So for me, I'm way more comfortable telling someone, look, if they can code, yeah, go get a 6-figure job. A lot of coders out there. That's the first piece is forget about the side hustle, get a nice job that pays you well. That's number one. Number two is keep your expenses razor thin. Even today, my business does well. I still live with my mother.
Is that by choice because you're saving money?
Yeah. It's definitely by choice. But I don't have to anymore. But that's how serious I am about reducing your spend and keeping your burn rate low. So that's the second piece. Keep your expenses really lean, even if it means you got to live with your siblings, your family members, friends and family, whatever. Number three, I would say, is side hustle comfortably. This is my advice. I hate the idea of side hustling with like a can of beans and like 5 other dudes in an apartment. I hate that. I side hustled, and I always like to say this, even if people hate me, I side hustled with lobster on my table. But the point I want to drive is side hustle comfortably. Work 10, 20 hours a week on your side hustle while you're making a good living. Because trust me, if you can't do 10, 20 hours doing it part-time, you 100% won't be able to do it full-time, in my opinion.
Have you had any major obstacles that along the way, like when you're launching this business? And I know you said you tried these different, sectors of people and some were, a miss. What were some of the biggest obstacles you faced in launching a business like this?
At the beginning, I always like to say we're always the most fragile at the beginning of one's idea. So now, you're right. I have the confidence now to do what I do. But the first 6 months, specifically 2019, I thought MasterTalk was the stupidest idea in the world. Think about it. I was a 22-year-old kid who's making videos on communication and public speaking with an accounting degree in my mother's basement. None of that makes sense, right? So what happened initially, and this was kind of the biggest obstacle I think I faced to date, I had an idea of sending my videos to university professors because these resources weren't available. And it wasn't even about business, by the way. It was just sharing YouTube videos to help people. So I was just making these videos and I said, if I share with university professors, they'll share it with students. And they'll share it with every student. My YouTube channel will grow. That sounds smart on paper. And then after 50,000 emails, I realized that university professors are really mean people.
Oh, because I was going to say, that sounds like a great idea. I was like, is that how you got all your listeners and your views? Okay.
No, I got spat on the face.
Really?
Yeah, I got spat in the face a bunch of times. A lot of them were replying with stuff like, you're young, what do you know about communication? And I was like, Jesus, guys, you guys got to support young, youthful entrepreneurship. So yeah, I was really down in the dumps from that.
You obviously run a business now, a full-time business, teaching people how to communicate. What credentials, when you're walking into these companies, are people looking for you to have a degree? And obviously your degree is not in communication. What makes you qualified in their eyes to come in and teach them how to communicate? And then how do they quantify success? In terms of you are successful in my course.
So there's a couple of thoughts that come to mind. The first one is never sell someone who doesn't want to be sold. So for me, it's not about trying to sell to the CEO of JP Morgan, right? He's going to look at me and laugh me out of the room. He's going to be like, okay, well, this guy's a kid. What does he know about communication? And that's fine. But remember, I just need 20, 30 people in all of the United States of America or Canada, the world to buy it. So that's the first piece. Point number two is that's where social media comes in. Social media, honestly, is the greatest equalizer of our generation. And the reason it's such an equalizer is because you can share shit without permission. What's great about social and why I love it, and that's what I love the most about business, is it's all objective, mostly a lot more objective, in the sense that if you know what you're talking about and you're sharing it and people listen to and agree with that, you know what you're talking about, that's all you need.
I wanted to ask you a question about where you learned your, the stuff you're putting on videos. It's free. You put it up there. Where did you learn that kind of content? Where do you come up with that? Is it your own? How did you learn that stuff?
It's honestly mostly self-taught. So some of it I get from other coaches where it's I should talk about pauses and things like that. But all of those videos are handwritten by me. So let me actually give you the formula, essentially what happens. Honestly, it might just be a gift of mine. So essentially what happened was when MasterTalk started, I didn't guess. I just went to the three people. Yeah, it was three. The three people who are listening to my shit every week. And I just said, what questions do you have for me on communication? And they would just ask me a bunch of questions. How do you do vocal tone variety? How do you do pacing? I was like, I don't know. And I would just take literally every day while I was working at IBM, I'd book 1 hour and I would just think about the question for an hour and try, because I'd coach 70 people. And so I basically just reversed engineer my own success. In other words, I became a great communicator. I didn't understand how I became a great communicator. I just practiced a lot. And then when I started coaching other people, I said, okay, well, that's simple to me isn't simple to them. So I started like figuring out, it was basically trial and error, let's say. And then I just did it one video at a time. I mean, go watch my first videos. I mean, they were shit. Like I was just like, welcome to MasterTalk. But after like many years of just keep asking myself one question that a client or like a guest or an audience member was asking me, I just kept finding the answers to questions, and guesting on hundreds of shows as well helped me because people are asking me a ton of questions. So it keeps my brain firing. And that's how I developed the thought leadership over time.
So I wanted to know, just in terms of like, and you've given great tips along the way. Are there any other tips that you could think of that you could offer to people who are listening to this, who might be interested in coaching? I'm thinking about like something similar to what you're doing, who think they have like a skill set like this. Like what would be the first thing, or like kind of the first steps that they would need to take, like listening to this being like, maybe I could do something like that? What would you say to them?
If you're interested in coaching, the easy way to figure out if you want to do this is you just coach somebody for free, like easily. And if you hate that experience, don't become a coach. You'll hate your life. But if you're addicted to it, like I was in university, you'll do it over and over and over again. So that's the advice. Coach people, don't wait until tomorrow. The other two principles I would share, Lexi, is the second piece is have a clear, defined plan if you ever exit corporate. So before I left corporate, like I'd planned my exit 2 months before I'd resigned. Right? In the sense, kind of like my escape plan or something. That's the second piece. Have a clear, defined plan. So many people burn the bridges without actually like drawing out the plan, the escape plan looks like. And if you don't, you'll burn with the bridge. The third piece is make money before you quit. You should have a product that's already making you money. I think the biggest mistake most people make with side hustles is they just go, oh yeah, so I'm making like 70 grand a year in my job, and then I'm going to quit my job, even if I don't have a side hustle idea, and I'm making $0, and I'm just going to figure it out. Yeah, good luck with that. Instead, what you want is you want a business that you failed multiple times in, but it's safely because you're making money, right? In your corporate job or whatever you're doing. And then you just try a bunch of things, whether it's a cupcake business, make the cupcakes in your oven and just see if you can sell 10 of them. The piece that I would drive with me, Lexi, is like, I didn't just quit blind. I already had paying clients. They just loved my YouTube channel so much that they were like, yeah, I'd love to learn from you. And they were like CEOs of companies. And I was like, sure. But when I got to 10 clients, I was like, okay, like I'm making 30 grand now. If my CEO clients are picking me over the 50-year-old guy who's charging a lot more, not delivering the service, I could easily do better than that person.
So in closing, I wanted to ask you, before you tell everybody where to find you and, what your kind of LinkedIn and all that stuff is, what do you see for MasterTalk and kind of the next steps? You're obviously a mover and a shaker. Hate that term, but you are. I mean, you're 26. I mean, you've done this. It seems like you're just getting started. So like, what's your vision for the next step of what you want to do?
There's only one way to explain this, which is a TikTok. So I was watching this TikTok the other day, Lexi, and it was this TikTok about Taylor Swift winning this award. Okay, and it's like 2014. And then her last closing speech sounds something like this. Your future woman of the year is 11 years old right now. She's sitting in a choir. She's learning piano the first time, and she has a passion to be a singer one day. And we need to take care of her. And then she walks off stage. And then the TikTok flips for the last 30 seconds. And Billie Eilish wins Woman of the Year. Okay, she's like the youngest inductee by Billboard ever. She's like 17 years old. She's got like her hip dress. She's got her Kool-Aids. And she's like on top, like on the stage, and she's giving her 2-minute speech. And she starts with, oh my God, like Taylor Swift's speech was so good. And like, I have no idea what to say. And then her last 30 seconds completely changed my life. And basically what she said, Taylor always stole everything that I was going to say. But what I was going to say was, when I watched Taylor Swift speak in 2014, I was 11 years old and I was getting started with the choir. And I was playing piano the first time. So the only thing I have left to say, Billboard, was thank you for taking care of me. And she walked off the stage. And the reason that always gives me goosebumps, Lexi, is when I saw Taylor Swift in that TikTok, I asked myself, who's taking care of the next Elon Musk who needs a communication coach? There's someone out there right now who's 13 years old, whether it's a boy or a girl in some country, and nobody believes it though. Nobody thinks they're the next Elon Musk. Like how Elon was 15, nobody gave a shit about him. And I just thought to myself, what if I could be that person? What if I could be the single human being on earth to help all of them master communication? And if I achieve that goal, which is my life's mission, the human race as a whole would advance at lightning speed because every genius of our society would be an exceptional communicator, which is the dream.
Wow. Well, that is much larger than a 5-year plan. And I love that. And I would be so honored to have talked to you if that is the case. And I truly believe maybe it's because communication is so near and dear to my heart, because I just think it's the key to like solving so many of like life's, there's part of like taking it into the corporate world, but just being able to communicate ideas successfully and being able to just communicate your thoughts is such an important skill for everyone to have, regardless of what you're doing. I mean, it's essential. I love your business. I think what you're doing is great. It's been incredible talking to you. So
likewise.
I can't thank you enough. So in closing, I think that's great. I'm going to follow your career now. I'm going to stalk you obsessively. I stalk all my guests obsessively. Tell everybody where they can find you, all of your links, everything. I know you're all over the place. And
absolutely, Lexi. So 2 easy ways to keep in touch. The first one is the YouTube channel. Just go to MasterTalk in one word. You'll have access to hundreds of free videos on how to communicate. And the second way to keep in touch for those of you who are interested in coaching is all you have to do is register for one of my free trainings over Zoom, like we talked about earlier in the show. Website for that is rockstarcommunicator.com.
Great. I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much. This was so fun. I really appreciate you taking the time on I don't know, what is it, Thursday night at 10 p.m. at night. This is fabulous. So thank you.